So I'm going to call to order the City of Burlington Board of Finance on Monday, August 4th at 5:02 p.m. Our first item on the agenda is the agenda. Is there a motion on the agenda? So moved. Councilor Carpenter, thank you. Moves. Seconded by Councilor Barlow. Thank you. Any discussion before we vote? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Moving on to our public forum is practice of the Board of Finance, the first voted members of the public in the room first and then to online. And we of course ask folks to keep their comments similar to the comments upstairs at the city council meetings for about 2 minutes or so. Looking around, I don't actually see any members of the public besides city staff, so I'm going to take that as a indication that no one is in the room. So we're going to go online. Is anyone online? I see former city councilor Sharon Busher online. And Sharon, you are up. Welcome.
Can you hear me?
We can. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I've got this weird thing saying join as a panelist. I don't know what that's got to do with. It's blocking seeing all of you. But anyways, that doesn't matter. I have a general question which I'm going to ask in regards to a specific agenda item. So I'm going to focus it on the planning grant continuum of care item. And when I was looking at this, I realized that there's a housing program specialist, a housing program manager, and I'm not sure I know who that is. And then there's a housing program specialist, Bethany Whitlock, and I think she's been there a while, but frankly, I don't know. So why am I doing this? Because when CEDO and Parks and Rec lost a lot of their employees, there was a statement that there would be some work done to figure out the new org charts and how to get that work done. And if new people are assigned to that work, it would be really nice to know who they are and whether they've been with the city or not, and what experience they have specific to the job that they're now performing. I think it's really important for me to have confidence when some of these people speak, to know that they speak from a position of experience with the particular topic. And so I just really wanted to understand that this housing grant has been this approach to dealing with houselessness or homelessness has been in practice now for several years. And Rita Markey used to feel that it put families and children at greater risk because of how you evaluate the people that need the housing first. I don't know if that statement has proven to be true, but it stuck with me, and I continue to want to make sure that the city kind of looks at this topic carefully. But I'm pleased we have monies to deal with this. I'm happy that we are going to be the recipient of now combined grants for a total of $700 and some odd thousand. So I'm happy with this. I just have questions about who's doing the jobs and their level of expertise. So thank you.
Thank you, former Councilor Sharon Busher. Anyone else online to address Board of Finance? Seeing none, I will close the public forum at 5:06 p.m. and we'll move on to our next agenda item, which is our consent agenda. Is there a motion on the consent agenda? Moved by Councilor Carpenter. Is there a second on, thank you, on the consent agenda, seconded by Councilor Barlow. Thank you. Any discussion on the consent agenda before we vote? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. On to our deliberative agenda. Item 4.1 is with CEDO / the mayor's office, and Sarah Russell will come up. And as she comes up, this is an item that which is spoken to in the public forum, an approval to accept the planning grant continuum of care Vermont 501, and permanent supportive housing grant agreements for state fiscal year 26. FFY 24.
Federal fiscal year.
Federal, thank you, federal, learn something every day as they are actually a million things a day.
Another day.
And there's a lot of additional stuff in the title, but anyway, these are acceptance of two very important grants for our homelessness response. And Sarah, I'm gonna have you start and I'll dovetail as necessary. Welcome.
Sure. Thank you. I am here because Cara is on vacation and Beth, who prepared this, is not able to come tonight. So they asked me if I would come because I have knowledge of these grants. So we have for close to 2 decades, we've been the collaborative applicant for the Continuum of Care grants. We work we had 2 grants specifically to this. There were 2 grants under the New Horizon that have been consolidated into one. It makes things easier. And we do work with 2 providers, the Community Health Centers of Burlington and Pathways to be the service provider. That serves as match because this funding, the 718, is rental assistance for housing. So it's important that we apply for this every year on behalf of the community and that we receive it because it houses around 40 or so folks who would not be able to be housed otherwise because they wouldn't be eligible for routine HUD rental assistance. CEDO, Burlington Housing Authority is a sub-recipient of this contract because they administer the tenant-based rental assistance. And the match for this is comprised of the service hours, permanent supportive services that are provided by, like I said, CHC and YFs. And there is about, just trying to see. We have really worked hard to increase our utilization rates. In the CHC grant, there are 15 of 19 slots that are filled, and in the Pathways grant, there are 20 of 22 spots that are filled. So we're continuing to enroll folks into that program, or into permanent supportive housing program. For the question that Sharon Busher had around disproportionate maybe impact for families, families are eligible for this grant. Historically, in order to be eligible for permanent supportive housing, you have to meet the high definition of chronic homeless, meaning that you need to be homeless for at least 12 months, and you have to clearly document that. In the past, we didn't have families homeless for that long. We were able to house them for much more quickly. Now that's sadly not the case. So families who meet the definition of chronic homeless have head of household that has a disability and have a service need that requires permanent supportive services would be eligible for this grant as well. So that's the 718,964 New Horizons renewal. There's also a planning grant, which is the 57,790, which is an increase from last year, and that is funding that that is primarily used by CO to support the this our COC to serve in this collaborative applicant role, and a portion of that also goes to match for the full-time coordinator position for the Chittenden County Homeless Alliance that is actually based out of the HFA. That's a lot. Was that a lot of confusing information?
I think that was very straightforward.
Okay.
And I will just add just a little bit to former City Councilor Busher's questions around other CEDO and housing related staffing. Again, Cara is not here tonight, so it's my best attempt, and sort of correct me if I'm wrong, Sarah, if you happen to know. But we are filling a vacant housing management position, which was a pre-existing CEDO position where we had someone exit, not due to the RIFs and change in CEDO, but exited because it was a prior planned transition professionally. We are close to concluding the hiring for that role, and so that position will be filled soon, not done yet. We did change one position that was a supportive role to Sarah from 1 FTE to 0.5 FTE, and we are working to fill that position, so that will come online soon. And then the final piece is the one and only new position we've added to this year's budget, which is not gonna be hired until the last quarter of the fiscal year. As more of a policy strategist on housing in general, not specific to homelessness, of course, because we have Sarah and others. But that position will not be hired until Q4, and that will be a new position that we are working to create to help us with our overall housing strategy. We'll also talk more about overall homelessness response upstairs during city council meeting, just for folks watching at home. And Sarah and I will lead that upstairs in a work session, not sure what time, but Council Barlow, President Barlow will help. It's a big moment tonight at the president gavel. So hopefully that helps to shed a little light. Any questions from councilors on this item?
Just to clarify that halftime position, before, that was sort of part of another position and then you reorganized and now that's actually a vacant position at the minute, is that so?
Correct, and that was when we did a version of service inventory work of Sarah's and this prior employee's position. And also the bringing online of this staff position that Sarah just mentioned that's held at
Yes, at the HFA.
Yeah, okay. Staff coordinator position that supports the regional county response and the COC. I have all my acronyms, right? We realized there were some pieces that we could try to step back from that we were holding more prominently as the Burlington by city staff for the region. And we felt like with the coordinator coming online and the strategic plan that Sarah helped to lead as co-chair, that was a small bit of reduction we could do. And that's hence why that position.
That a new person in that position.
The job description has been finalized and sent to HR, so we're in the process of hiring.
That's for your halftime person, but the one at VHFA, is that a new person?
We received, we actually received, it turned out to be 5 years of funding through the Collective Impact Grant at Chic, the hospital. So we have, were granted $450,000 over 5 years for this position. And we hired Bryce last fall. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. The HFA serves as the fiscal agent.
Right,
for,
right. I just
yeah,
trying to keep it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Council Barlow?
Thank you for this. I'm supportive, but I'm curious to know, given, we talked about this about other federal grants. Is this money then, is there any risk of uncertainty around receiving this money, or has this always been?
Oh, I think there's risk around receiving any federal funds these days, but this has been, there was a change. So for this last year, it was supposed to be a 2-year grant cycle, and we would have been in year 2, and we were told that we wouldn't need to submit a new application again this year, that we would just submit for a renewal. About 3 weeks ago, they told us that actually, no, we're gonna make you apply over again. And I think that it's likely because this housing program manager would be serving as the collaborative applicant, pulling those applications together from all of the partners. We will likely need to hire a consultant to fill that role. And which I think is actually a good thing, because we really are going to need somebody to look at the new EO from President Trump that you're going to hear more about later tonight. Around how they're deprioritizing housing first programs. This is exactly what so I think that we'll be learning more. I have a meeting with the National Alliance to Homelessness Day to learn more. So we're still figuring it out.
Once we receive the money, if we actually get the proceeds, is there a risk that?
Not recaptured, no. So this grant is actually for FFY 24. So we're always a year behind. So this has already been appropriated. We're definitely getting this funding for FFY 25, which will be the application that we submit in the next month or 2. That money hasn't been appropriated yet, so we don't. But this is solid for 12 months.
Any other questions or comments on item 4.1?
Just one.
Yeah,
thank you, Mayor. Just one question, Sarah, and I emailed you. It's slightly unrelated to this item, but I think related in the sense that I'm trying to get a better picture and be able to communicate a better picture because to my mind it's getting worse with the number of folks recently out of the motel housing program, but and there's a bunch of different categories of folks with different needs, different supports are effective in addressing, but I just wonder if you could give, my understanding is there's like 5,000 folks struggling with homelessness. We've got, shelter capacity for somewhere in the 600 and some odd household number. So maybe like close to 1,000 capacity overall for individuals. I wonder, one, am I understanding that statewide number roughly correctly? And two, what's just the very high level, big picture of where we are right now in addressing this issue to give residents an idea?
Councilor Newboozer, is that a question that you would like me to respond to now as it relates to the acceptance of these grants, or is that something that you would like to talk about during the work session today? I'm happy to do either, just want to make sure I understand what you're asking.
Yeah, I'm happy to ask during the work session too. I mean, I was gonna ask both here and there.
Okay,
Happy for you to answer it upstairs though.
now I'll be prepped for you.
Since it's a mere, a mere hour-ish or so upstairs, Council Meeting, let's swallow that question.
Sure, yeah.
Great, okay. Anything else on item 4.1? Is there a motion?
My internet's being ornery, but I would move to accept the grant as proposed and submit
The motion language here, and because there's a lot of numbers and weird letters related to some of the motion language, we want to make sure it's there for legal purposes. So moved by Councilor Carpenter. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Councilor Porro, thank you. Seconds. Any further discussion before I call the question? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Motion carries unanimously. I saw affirmations. So
Yeah.
Okay.
internet.
All right. Excellent. All right. Moving on.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Yeah, Sarah. Moving on to our next item with our airport. Longo's going to come up, item 4.2, which is regarding parking access and revenue control system agreement of Flash Parking Incorporated. Welcome back.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick history on our parking system or our parks system, our parking access and revenue control system. And I'm joined here today by our Director of Finance, Marie Friedman, as well as Romeo von Herman, our Manager of Customer Experience. Back in March of 2018, we, with the city of Burlington, went through a collaborative effort to readdress our parks system, our access control system. We hired or purchased T2 parking systems, which was installed physically in the parking garage to, of course, accept payment for parking in the garage as well as other city garages around town. That's since been removed and is quite antiquated in our parking garage. In fact, some of our lanes don't even work any longer as T2 no longer supports those systems. Through a cooperative purchasing agreement under the new city of Burlington purchasing rules, we were able to hire, research and work with Flash Parking Incorporated, which fit all of our needs through our scope of work as well as our needs, both from a revenue control standpoint as well as a hardware and software standpoint. So you can see all of the advantages of readdressing this system in our airport parking garage. This will only be in the airport parking garage. The ability to accept digital payment methods, which is a huge customer experience effort on for our passengers through Google Pay, Apple Pay, and credit card, proximity pay, as well as newer equipment and hardware. So the financial components of this are also outlined in this memo. There is a just shy of a $200,000 down payment associated with this to address any appropriation or non-appropriation clauses within the contract, as well as approximately a $93,000 per year subscription service fee for both the leasing of the hardware as well as some of the software programs that come behind the scenes. This is a 5-year agreement. There are 2 one-year options to extend if we choose to extend. There is a small budget amendment that we would have to do to realize this down payment that we have. That shift in funding or expenses is also related to our parking garage and some services that we completed earlier last fiscal year so that we can accommodate this fiscal year. We weren't sure if it was going to be completed. That's why we budgeted it for 26. It is completed, the physical infrastructure, and that's why we're able to address some of these budget amendments so early in the fiscal year. That is essentially it. It's a new system, better access for our passengers, our customers, and a 5-year contract.
Thank you, Nick. Marie, do you want to add anything? Does anyone else want to add anything? No.
I think Nick got it all.
Okay, great. All right. Thank you both, additional team, for being here as well. Questions or comments from the board? Item 4.2, Councilor Barlow.
Thank you. I'm curious to know if why we're picking a different system than our we use citywide, and whether or not this is more of a hardware thing and that's more, you know, an on the street meter thing, although we don't use it in our garages here.
Yeah, great question. So 2 things. One, Park Mobile is can be used for parking garages, but a lot of times for prepayment of systems, like on a meter system or on the street parking, which is really challenging for the airport. We're eventually going to roll out a prepayment system, but really challenging for the airport and actual access control, physical access controls. The really great thing about Flash systems is it does integrate with Park Mobile. And thank you for asking that, because I wanted to say that. So somebody can still pay using the connectivity with Park Mobile that not just the city, but many cities use around the area, which is a brand new concept for the airport because T2 doesn't have any of those digital methods of payment or other programs like Park Mobile, but it is going to be compatible.
And as we train people to use Park Mobile, especially certain demographics that are sort of technology resistant, we get them and they want to go on trips and leave their car at the airport.
Yeah.
It would be, you know, a barrier to using that technology.
That's right.
Be able to. So I would look forward to that integration.
So I can go on my phone in the airport and go to my Park Mobile app and pay.
With this new Flash system, you should be able to do that. Not right off the bat, because we still have to communicate with Park Mobile on the integration with Flash. But there'll be also an online system to pay and pay on foot machines like we have today. But yeah, there's many digital methods to pay, including Park Mobile.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? Okay, being none, is anyone ready to make a motion?
I would move to authorize the Director of Aviation to execute the agreement, subject to final review and approval by the City Attorney's Office, and to take such further actions and execute such further instruments approved as performed by the City Attorney's Office as may be necessary or convenient to effectuate the transactions contemplated.
Thank you, Councilor Barlow. There's a second. Motion, Councilor Carpenter, thank you. Any further discussion before we vote? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Any opposed, nay? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Nick and team. Appreciate it.
Thank you all.
Our last item on our agenda is related to an executive session item regarding the discussion regarding our tentative agreement of our collective bargaining agreement between the City of Burlington and the Burlington Police Association, the BPOA, that represents our police officers. And as such, we're going to go into executive session because premature disclosure of information regarding this TA to the general public would put the city at a disadvantage. So all those lines I'm supposed to say. So I would like to see if there's a motion to help us go into executive session by a member of the board. So moved by Counselor Carpenter, the motion as stated on Civic One.
Yes.
Thank you, Counselor Carpenter. Is there a second?
Question, there's two motions.
Yes.
Yes, I was paraphrasing and then, so
This is the first motion. Or both?
well, do we have to do both separately?
I
I'm
think,
almost never upstairs when you guys do this stuff, sorry, so I should pay attention next time.
can you just indicate on the record if you are seconding both motions?
Counselor Carpenter, did you move?
I motioned both motions, that's written on
Okay, so
the-
both motions are on the table, on the floor, I should say. And so would you second both?
I was second.
Okay, Counselor Barlow is seconding both motions related to executive session. Any discussion on both motions before we vote? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Motion carries unanimously, and we are now in executive session, so we will turn off the pause or whatever we officially do with Town Meeting TV